Hey guys, we're sorry that y'all are gonna have to go to another what? Oh.
Yeah, so I'm too dumb and this is all too complicated for me, so I made a part 2. Hopefully you guys can all find it. Hopefully we'll have viewers in a few seconds. Worst case, like always, it'll be on the podcast that we put out.
Also lower the TV.
Yeah, which will be much more organized than this. But yeah, we're gonna wait a little longer to come back, and then we started having a conversation, and it seemed like something that'd be better to actually have on this.
Yeah.
So first of all, welcome to the podcast, Jackson Mayer. Mar.
He runs a great Quidditch blog.
He's my favorite Quidditch writer at the moment.
Yeah,
Am I the guest of the podcast, or is Noah?
No, I'm a
shots fired.
Whoa! I'm not even on the screen for y'all to see my reaction, but that was a low blow.
It's because you're the guest.
It's a low blow. No, Lee Jackson, and he is absolutely doing some of the best Quidditch writing that there is right now. It's typically about the Northeast / the East Coast in general. I'd say probably easily the best regional writer of anywhere.
And he's spreading out now. He's not just doing. He was Boston Quidditch scene, but now he's talking about Maryland. He just showed us his notes. He's working on a Baylor article.
Well,
Are you gonna have to change your name of your blog?
No, because the reason I started was I just wanted to
He put out some really high quality video.
I wanted to make the video, and then I was like, oh, I'll start writing a little bit too. And I always was annoyed when people would talk about, when I played, I was always annoyed when people who had never seen us play or at all or knew us at all would always be like, oh, well, Emerson plays. I played for Emerson. Emerson plays this way and that way, and it's you don't know who we are. You haven't. It'd be someone from LA was oh, Emerson. The key to Emerson's success is these two things that I saw in one video. So
to be fair, LA and Emerson are basically the same thing.
That's true. So my goal of writing was I have enough background. I've seen these guys play a couple of times, and I'll try and figure out what it is that people do well and don't do so well.
Yeah, no, and we've enjoyed it. You have really good in-depth stuff. You utilize video. People don't utilize video enough. Mm-hmm. But basically what we were talking about before we came on. And also you have one of my 2 or 3 favorite Twitter feeds in Quidditch.
Nice.
Always writes a lot of interesting stuff.
Shout out that Twitter feed, Ethan.
It's Boston Quidditch.
At Boston Quid.
At Boston Quid. Oh, see, I would have given the wrong Twitter.
And what's the blog?
It's bostonquidditchscene.tumblr.com.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out, guys.
Awesome. But we were talking about Emerson, which
we were having a really good conversation on Emerson.
Jackson's trying to make very clear that he is not Emerson.
I am no longer on Emerson.
I'm gonna refer to it as y'all, regardless.
That's fine.
But
I'm just.
Noah's out of picture by the way because he's eating his mushu pork.
Chicken, mushu chicken.
Sorry.
Good Jews don't eat pork. Ethan.
You're not a good Jew.
No, I'm not. But yeah, we were having a good conversation about Emerson. What do you see, I guess, as why they have struggled this year? And I say struggle relatively in comparison to other years.
Yeah, I think they struggled a lot at first because there was just this big, turnover. For the first time, they didn't really have someone who was who was going to be the next
Fox.
Yeah, they didn't have that, and they also didn't have someone who was going to be the person who came up with a new idea. I came up and me and CJ and Lyle and David definitely was a big part of our captainship too because there were the 4 of us. And but we came up with a new defense and we rejiggered our offense. Although nobody seems to give us any credit for that. And but we started playing when Max Blauschuld was still a captain and he changed stuff. So there was always kind of this overlap, and now everybody's kind of left, and now they're kind of trying to figure it out. They brought in Rose Fuller, who was the right coach. I hope I said her name right.
I already said your name. You would be part of it. You're only part of this podcast once you said a last name wrong.
Okay. Yeah. So, they were trying to figure it out, and they lost I think now they only have 4 players that were on the Final Four.
It's kind of crazy.
Year. Yeah. So that considered. The fact that they got into the quarterfinals and were playing NYU pretty close, and
without Jake,
yeah, which don't even get CJ started on that. He's so mad.
CJ, who by the way has no connection to the team anymore.
Where's at Loyola doing good things with Loyola?
Yeah, shout out to CJ. I told him I would give him a shout out if I ever made it onto the podcast.
CJ is great.
CJ's my Southwest insider. Anytime I say anything about the Southwest, it's because CJ told me something.
You're just parroting back what CJ said.
No, I mean like mostly, yeah.
Actually, mostly.
Anytime there's like a film of a big Texas tournament that Loyal is at, like for the finals, you'll just see like him ARing somewhere.
You can
You'll
always
see him wander
You can
around.
always see him with like his gray sweatshirt.
Yeah, always a
and his
sweatshirt.
long pants, and usually he's got like his green sneakers on. He's like walking like this around. It's just like, oh, well, there's CJ. And whenever I watch a game, I'll always text him and tell him he made a bad call. So, like, I'm pretty sure he was repping like you had that article
about the injuries.
about the injuries, which was like the best. I think the most. I said it on my Twitter. Not that anybody reads that, but
These are reasons I love this Twitter, by the way. No, I'm just kidding.
but I was like, this is the most important article anybody's written about Quidditch in a long time because it kind of, it's about something that's actually important rather than, it's about like how we're going to continue our sport, how we can continue to, it's like addressing the evolution and not just it's happening. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
And I'm pretty sure he was reffing one or two of those, and I was like, oh, CJ, you idiot. But CJ's a great rep. For the record.
Yeah.
I actually want to get back to Jake Hines a little bit. Having played on that team and kind of watched it recently, how important, because I give Jake Hines a lot of credit. I think he's very important to what Emerson is trying to do offensively, both last year and this year. I was curious what your thoughts about it were.
Well, last year, obviously I have a better opinion of Jake from last year because I was on the team. But Jake started all of our games at World Cup, basically. He was our starter, and he always gave us like a huge spark right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Because, a lot of times you come into games and people are nervous, people you're playing against, especially when you start getting later and later. And Jake, has this, I can't think of anyone who's faster that I've played against or with.
In our sport, he has almost elite level speed. Like, I'm not saying he has like elite athletic speed, but in our sport, he has elite speed.
The only other person I can ever remember playing against who I thought was really fast and quick was Brian Barrows. Like, those two guys are the only ones. And the thing about Jake is once he gets ahead of steam, he can still cut and change directions that he's just unstoppable in the open field. So that was a huge boost for us. The thing is he runs so hard and so fast. He can't play as long shifts as a lot of people play in the Northeast.
Yeah. So
I think he'd actually be like he was a perfect fit for like a deep team where we could keep bringing him in for more shifts.
Yeah.
But when you have to rely on him more, you get he's not the greatest passer, although he's gotten a lot better. So you kind of force him to do those things, which is not what his strength is. But to be honest, I haven't really seen him. I don't think he's been in. He didn't play at. Did he play at Northeast Classic?
That Northeast Classic team was a mess. So.
Yeah, so they were all over the place, which was the last time I saw them play live.
Right.
And he's not in any of Emerson's film
From regionals.
I
wonder why.
So, and that was questionable because he didn't do anything. But that's totally different.
Okay.
You're seeping into Emerson allegiance again.
Right,
Pretending to
right.
not be y'all.
Well, I mean, like he
He
it
got-
wasn't him who said it.
Yeah, I know.
There was a bit of controversy at
I think everybody knows
Northeast
by now,
Regionals.
but you can tell.
Anyway, bit of a controversy at Northeast Regionals. Jake Hines gets ejected from the tournament. Can you give me some water, baby girl? Thanks, homie. Please. My cup's right there.
You're fine. Which cup's yours?
My cup's right there. Oh, it's right here. Here you go, dude.
Yes.
We're repping Emerson College in the water bottle too.
But it's not y'all. It's not y'all.
But it's not y'all.
I mean, I went there for 4 years.
Thanks, man. Anyway, Hines gets ejected from the tournament for misconduct. Essentially, it was talking back to the refs.
Well, yeah,
It involved a broken broom. didn't it?
Jake definitely has a reputation of being kind of
Hot-tempered.
Yeah, hot-tempered, and
I have given Jake a red card at a drunken fantasy tournament. That's how like hot-tempered he can be.
it's definitely, and it's because he gets so into it.
Yeah.
And there always had to be someone on Jake Patrol last year, like making sure he didn't yell at anybody too much. But usually he's right about whatever he's yelling about. Is the thing that's really annoying.
About how you say it.
Yeah, and he's usually like,
Take as much.
I remember we had a game and they were trying to put him. He got a yellow card against Miami and they scored, and then they advantage whatever.
Right.
And ref kept trying to put him in the box, and he was yelling at him because that's ridiculous because they
It's
scored.
wrong.
Not how
Yeah.
it works.
It's just
But
wrong.
also he's right, and he's totally should be arguing that. But when you yell at people, they tend to listen less.
Yeah.
So he gets this reputation. Someone on RIT hears something. Jake always is breaking brooms. He broke one after we lost to BU at regionals last year. There's a gif of it somewhere.
Yeah.
And he just breaks it, and he's a ref, so he says, "Take it out of my paycheck." And
Great line, by the way.
great line.
Great line.
And so he got kicked out for something he didn't do, and that was unfortunate because he would have been a big help to them.
And if you watch the film, we were talking about it earlier, there are a lot of spots, especially early in the game, where Jake is best, that he could have definitely put Emerson up on NYU there.
Yeah, and that game is Emerson kind of. I think they still pride themselves on it's not going to be easy to beat them.
Yeah.
So even if you're the better team or you're the whatever, you have like this polished offense, they're just going to make it as much of a grind as possible.
They beat us this season.
Yeah. And we always talk about Emerson. We're always talking about that classic 1-2-2-1 zone that they play.
Which they're not really playing this year.
the Jackson zone.
They've changed it up a little bit. And at first, they did what I thought was just absolutely ridiculous. They took David Fox away from the hoops and put him on point defense. And in that Emerson zone, because the beaters play so close to the hoops, that point defender ends up getting beat a lot and running back to the hoops and essentially being a third defender there.
Well,
It didn't make sense. It seemed like it was a basketball team putting their center up on a point guard.
sure, and part of the reason I think they're doing that is because they're, it takes a while to adapt from what you had last year. So, last year it was our beaters were more experienced. We had Aaron and CJ
Right.
and other people, and we could put them further out from the hoops, and you could protect that point chaser a little bit more. So in that system, it would have been great. Like if we had played our zone with two big guys there and then David at point, that would have been super scary, and there could have been rotating and all sorts of stuff. But if you're putting, Tyler isn't the quickest guy, and he's a good keeper, but if he's like your only keeper, he's not exactly like David is the better defensive presence at the hoops.
Right.
I don't think anyone's arguing.
Right. You were talking about earlier how impressive David is as a defender.
Yeah, David, I think, and you guys probably can call me a homer, but I think David is easily the best, quaffle playing defender in the Northeast because, he gets a lot of people when he came into the league, he was like this super strong, bull rushing person. I've been watching a lot of Baylor recently, and he looks a lot like I watched Jacob Bruner and the way he runs through people, and I think that was kind of how people perceived David. Not saying that he was at that same level.
I mean, Jacob does it against the best point defenders in the game. It's really impressive.
And David was doing it against people at World Cup 5.
Uh-huh.
So there's a little bit of a difference there, and people kind of, as the sport has grown and everything, people have started to catch up with him, and he's kind of got this like, oh, he's overrated rep, I think. And offensively, I see that because his game hasn't really expanded as much as people expected it to. But defensively, man, I think he slimmed down this year.
Yeah, he did.
And he just covers so much ground, and he's got these gigantic arms, like just so long, covers so much space, and he tackles better than anyone in the region. And there were like 3 plays against NYU where he just like It was like the perfect David sequence. Like he would turn the ball over
with a terrible pass.
with just an atrocious pass and get beat at the same time at the top of the field. And the beaters were in front of him trying to get bludger control. So it was just this open field. But he sprinted all the way back. I think David Tian picked it up and started running. And David out-sprinted him to the hoops, turned around, got back on his broom, tackled him, and blew up the entire play. And he tackled him hard enough that he couldn't even pass it and gave his whole team enough time to get back in the play. And it was like, well, I can't think of anyone else who could make that play. But, yeah, I mean, it doesn't help when scoring goals.
And you can say that NYU is not the most biggest or physical team, but he did the same thing in the semifinals against Texas State last year. He stopped 3 or 4 fast breaks by himself there too.
Yeah, we were getting beat up against, Peebler was kicking our ass.
Yeah.
And
we all seen the picture of him kicking Paul in his ass.
He was kicking the ass.
He was just kicking ass. And we were like, okay. And we had, everyone knows we had Aaron Wall and CJ Jr. on the team, but we also had this other male beater named Todd Mitchell. Yeah. You guys know who he is, but who knows who's listening.
Sure.
And Todd, we called him the Todd Pedo because he was basically, he knew he wasn't going to play a ton behind Aaron and CJ.
Right.
But when he came in, he knew that his job was, we were launching the Todd Pedo. And he was out there to just hit somebody, make a difference, and then sub out. And we went that, and we ended up using him a lot more and doing 2 male beaters, and then and putting in combination of girls. And David was, usually we played if you were playing basketball, it'd be playing 2 bigs. We play David with another big person or Wes with another big
David
person.
and Tyra put together a lot this year.
Yeah, and
they do that a lot.
And we went small. We went with 1 big and Pablo or Jake, and then
Pablo
and
Miss Pablo.
And that's how we kind of fought back. I was telling these guys, that game is closer than people remember. We definitely lost, but we got it back within 30, and before we just ran out of gas.
Yeah, certain parts besides you guys being tired, that I feel like that beer matchup was just the last thing Aaron and CJ wanted to see last year was a physical beat.
Yeah,
because they're not physical beaters.
Not only that, but the last thing that they wanted to see in the Final Four, they were so tired.
Yeah.
I think if that matchup happens,
Aaron was pooped.
If that matchup happens a lot earlier in the day, you could see it being a lot closer in the game.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that these are equivalent beaters, but we ran into Miami early in the day. They were our first bracket play game, and they were good. I don't think people realized how good they were these last 2 years because they lost in the round of 32. But they were a good team. They were
lost to Bowling Green. You guys, they lost to 2 straight teams that went to the Final Four.
Yeah, exactly. And no shame in losing Emerson because we knocked 3 regional champions out of tournaments last year: Maryland, Miami, and BU. So they had some really physical beaters, and we were able to kind of adjust to it because it was early in the day. But as the day wears on and you play 3 super emotional games in a row, the Florida's Finest game was big for us because a lot of people on the team had played against USF in World Cup 5, and obviously Sean Pagoda was on those 2 teams. So that was and we hadn't gotten past the Sweet 16 in 2 years. So that was big. We got past there, and then playing BU obviously was a pretty draining game.
Yeah. But I think if David keeps playing next year, he's graduating, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if he keeps playing and he
fails some classes.
and he goes to a community team, I think he might benefit from a change of scenery, somewhere where he doesn't have to be the guy as much.
Yeah, I think David is, I think it's really hard to be. I think David is kind of like this symbol of the older, generation of Quidditch, where it's this really star-driven, hero. You guys talk about it a lot on the podcast about being this hero ball thing.
The Draco Mensa era.
Yeah, and and it becomes harder and harder and harder to do that.
Yeah.
And people still somehow expect him to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't really developed the skills to do otherwise.
Right.
The last time I played Quidditch was at the Jingle Bell tournament, and I was on David's team, and we were kicking everybody's butt when I brought the ball and would just pass it to him.
Yeah.
So if he can ever find that kind of
because he can get around the hoops and be physical and get up for a pass.
Yeah,
which
and
is something Tyler does a lot for them.
Yeah, and especially having slimmed down and being like way faster.
Right.
It's just like it's almost not fair that he can do that. He can like
He's a very athletic guy.
He can go for alley oops that like a lot of people can't touch.
I think a community team who has more depth at ball handler can play him off ball. But you need to improve.
Is QCB the right match?
That's the thing, though.
Well,
we talk about David off ball, and I personally give him a lot of crap for his off ball play because I think he's pretty defendable off ball in a pre-catch. The way you have to defend somebody like him is you have to beat him to the ball in the air.
In the Turtle Cup Finals, we put Hannah on him for like 5 straight possessions, and it worked. And it should not have worked.
Well, right. I mean,
you guys obviously ran trade on us by the end of the game, but
yeah, I was gonna say we were kind of getting whatever we wanted.
Yeah.
That game, though.
Well, Mike Sanders cramped up, and we were screwed at that point.
that
And
was what it was.
we just came
And we just came off like one of the craziest games of
game. We came off the NYDC game that lasted an hour.
You know how many hours of sleep I had from the night before? I slept 45 minutes before that.
That was because of Capri's kidney.
Because Capri had a kidney stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you guys showed up so
Capri
tired.
says hi. I don't know if she's watching. If she's
watching.
Oh god.
Apparently she sent you a Facebook message that she wants you to look at while on air. You don't have to read it out loud. But it's probably pretty terrifying.
It's probably something none of us should read.
No.
I'll look it up.
Oh no, it's probably something she's expecting us all to read.
But yeah, I mean, yes. I lost track of time.
No, that's all right.
We were talking about you had 45 minutes of sleep.
Oh
No,
my
we're-
god, she's
so,
just
but-
got this. She's just got this.
There's also a post on my wall right now about the 3 of us just having a threesome instead of recording this podcast. The 3 of us, not including her. But
I mean, 2 of us are good looking, I guess.
Who, me and Ethan?
no,
Hey, but
yeah, but QCB right now, but it seems almost a given that Harry's going to be with QCB next year. So you have Harry ball handling the line with David running around being a target. That's pretty scary. And then David can sit back at keeper and Harry can be the point defender. That's a pretty scary line.
Yeah, I mean,
I
if
like it.
that
I
works,
like it
it's good.
defensively a lot. Offensively, I'm not sure how much faith I have in Harry's ball handling.
You don't like Harry's ball handling?
Nah, I don't have much. No. The answer is no. I don't like Harry's.
What's your opinion on Harry's ball handling?
I really like. You talked about Brian Barrows.
Barrows
I
doesn't
like
handle that much on their line.
No, but Barrows.
Barrows runs around a lot.
But Barrows can do a lot of things as a ball handler that I think that Harry doesn't do very well. But go ahead. Well, how do you like Harry's ball handler?
I think Harry is really solid. I think that the thing that Harry does well is he gets past the first defender, right? Which you'd have to be able to do that.
Right.
So he can get past the fluffle, the point defender, which makes your beaters kind of have to adjust, and he's pretty good at passing.
Yeah.
Barrows likes to kind of
He likes to run, man.
he also gets in this like mindset. He's like the second line, and when every once in a while he'll get like kind of complacent, and he'll start like just like trying to quarterback it. Like, I'm gonna make the coolest pass I can. It's gonna go super far, and he doesn't use his speed at all. And it's like, what are you doing, man? You're the fastest guy
I've probably ever seen play.
Yeah, I remember the first time I played against him at Stony Brook, and he like,
Oh my god, the terrible Stony Brook tournament.
yeah, the terrible thing. So, but he just was so fast. He ran right past me.
Maryland likes to run. What Maryland does really effectively offensively is they get the ball to the guy they want it, and then they pick you until they get the matchup that they want. And so if you watch, this happened a lot in our game at Turtle Cup. No, what was the replacement for Turtle Cup? It was the Hofstra tournament.
Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest.
Okay.
It's happened a lot at Oktoberfest, where you get them they give the ball to whoever they wanted to have the ball, and they would essentially run an ISO, right? But the way that they would ISO is they'd pick you until they get the matchup that they want one-on-one, and then they'd run their ISO. And I remember getting stuck on Barrows a couple times, and
It's the
was
worst.
terrified.
He's
He's the
he
Jamal
knows all
Crawford of Quidditch.
He knows all the little tricks too. Like,
Yeah.
he'll anything like, and literally everyone should be doing this.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not trying to say that it is
No.
illegal. I'm just saying he knows like how
It
to.
is
not get
illegal,
off
but
their shot.
everybody should be doing it.
So there's no good tape of the 2 Tufts Maryland matchups from Oktoberfest. But if there was, those games are so entertaining because it's 2
It's like
teams.
one knows.
But it gets off after like
Yeah.
15 minutes. But like, it's 2 teams who love to do little things like that. It's 2 teams who like to pass on offense and who love to scrape their way to getting open.
Well,
around the
they
hoops.
like to pass a little bit more than you guys do. They like the
That's
thing.
fair.
The thing that I like about them is they like to move the ball from side to side,
Yes.
Yeah.
and
We're
they-
more, yeah.
and then and doing that makes your beaters move more, and I think it makes it easier to get the ball down and behind the hoops.
Mhm.
You know, to the like I call it the corners right next to the hoops.
Right.
Because that's like the most dangerous spot. Because then you can pass behind the hoops or in front of the hoops to cutters or anything, and the beaters have way more ground to cover.
Mhm.
And I think that they do a really good job of that, and I think that's a really hard thing to do. It takes a lot of time, and they will get better at it. And I think that they're going to be really good come World Cup.
Yeah, well, if you're thinking about an arc in basketball, because you think about it probably more than anybody ever thought of as a basketball
Yeah, he has,
game.
you kind of broke down the field as
And if you think about it, like what you're talking about is really they swing the ball around the 3-point line.
Yeah, I
everyone at Emerson Quidditch seems to like basketball a lot.
yeah, well, because basketball is the best sport. But
Interesting.
but yeah, like they do a couple things that make it especially like basketball. They do that, and they do side pick and rolls a lot. So they'll pass the ball to the side instead of just kind of walking up behind their beaters. They'll pass it back and forth, and passing it to the side is really effective because now you don't have to when like their beaters come up, who are pretty good. When their beaters come up, they don't have to like get in this like duel.
Yeah.
So like if you're playing against NYU and you're trying to just like duel with Kyle John, that sucks. You're not gonna get very far. But if you were able to like swing the ball to the side, and now he has to look to his right and for the quaffle and look to his left because that's where the beaters are coming from, that makes it a lot. That like adds this level of complexity. It's not that complex, but you have to defend that in a different way. And then when they drive, they can drive back to the middle instead of driving around the side.
Yeah, Lone Star when they face Baylor in the finals, and obviously the Baylor zone is different than NYU what they play, but every single play was a pass out to the wing to begin with.
Yeah.
When you play Baylor, I think you kind of have to.
Yeah.
Well, Lone Star,
But a lot of people didn't for a really long time.
Well,
yeah, Lone Star has I mean, it's obvious that they have like the best offense in the country, but it's not just like we have all these talented people. Like I think people looked at QCB, or I looked at QCB and I was like, oh, they have a lot of talent at Chaser, pushing them to like Kedzie, and it was like, why can't they put this together and create something that's not just walk it up and let Jake shoot? And it's harder to do that than you think. And Lone Star has done a really good job of like, from what I've seen, and I haven't like ever seen them play in person, so this is kind of speculative.
Take
But-
with a grain of salt.
yeah, but they pass really well, and they're all like willing passers. So they have a lot of off-ball threats that they will actually get the ball to, and they get to them in like good places. And when those guys get the ball, they're not necessarily looking. They're looking to score, but they're not looking to be the one who scores. So they're looking to either they're looking to drive, and then if it's there, score, and if it's not, dish it to someone else who's going to drive, and if it's there, score, and if it's not, dish it. So they can keep driving and dishing. And they have so many athletes that it's just pretty unfair.
Their pace is also absurd, which is a big part of the Southwest game in general. But
Yeah.
the way they can push the pace,
Yeah,
And the way they can push the pace for so long, because like you said, they're so deep. They just being able to drive and like keep going. I mean, you talk about like it's like a really good VCU team, like a really good Stephen Austin team.
But it's also funny because they almost blew the Southwest Finals by trying to slow down the pace with the snitch on pitch.
Well, that's the
They
thing.
couldn't
you,
do it.
You can get those like
well, I
mean,
actually like them slowing it down.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was the right play, but they couldn't.
I thought that it made a lot of sense, and what they got, the reason that they started getting, the reason that they start, like, it wasn't that they slowed it down that Baylor was able to come back. It was that the beating game changed, and that they were trying to, play the snitch a certain way. And I don't know exactly how, because I haven't really studied that or looked at that much. But all of a sudden, Baylor had bludgeon control again. And in the beginning of that game, Baylor was playing really well when before Gilbert subs out the first time.
Baylor also didn't have Brittany in that game and won
Yeah.
the World Cup.
And they were winning. They were up like 3-1 or 3-2, and it was because every time Lone Star would come down, they were having a really hard time scoring against bludgeon control because obviously that's tough, especially with the Baylor zone. And they would use a bludger trying to get bludger control back, and they would turn it over and then, fast break Bruner score.
So hard to stop.
Yeah, and that's kind of how Baylor makes their money.
Yeah. So what we want to do with you is, so we've kind of been talking about these teams mainly the whole time, but you got the 4 big Southwest teams. Then you've got 6 other teams in the top 10, which is the 2 West teams, Gambits and Lost Boys, Tufts, Maryland, NYU, and Ohio State. Ohio State might get the shaft here because none of us know anything about Ohio State.
Yeah, we said the Midwest is really weird, kind of like the Big 12. They play each other and they beat up on each other, and we don't know.
Everybody from the Midwest says Jeremy Faulkner. Yeah,
You don't have to get it right. This is the secret club.
They say he's good, and that's about as far as I know. Like, everyone's like, he's really good, and I watched their finals with Bowling Green, and he looks good. And that was about as much as I could decipher. So I didn't know who they were playing against or anything, but he looks like he's pretty good.
I mean, at least Bowling Green has played the Northeast. Like, there are comparisons. They went to that tournament Jack the Fan ran.
Yeah, but the tournament also is tough.
It was
to look
weird.
at, because when you look back, NYU was one of the bigger teams at it, but they were not NYU yet.
No.
So every game that they play is totally taken with a grain of salt.
Right.
And the Warriors are really hard to figure out.
The Warriors, I'm surprised the Warriors are still in the top 20. That's a little shocking to me. I don't see them.
Well, their regionals run was so weird. They played no competitive games until the semifinals.
That's what I was going to say. It wasn't weird. It just kind of fell really well for them.
Yeah, very, very well. But yeah, so
also Virginia is in a 4-point game and typically has trouble scoring the basketball.
Wichita State survived. My Elite Eight is not dead
Virginia
yet.
has trouble scoring the basketball, and they're in a 4-point game with Belmont. So if Belmont can shoot pretty well from here on out, I think.
Isn't Belmont a shooting team too?
They are.
Or is that like what they were 3 years ago when I was?
It might. It might.
This would not be the first time me and Noah made an assessment based on things we remember from like high school.
Anyway.
Okay,
But
so
what we really want to do, as you said, was we wanted you to.
You guys always get this far off track.
no, this has been specific for this podcast. I feel like Jackson coming on, like when we break this down to actual podcast, we'll put out a
It'll be a
podcast of us with Jackson.
It'll be the highlight.
No, but I'm saying like we'll do a podcast of like those first 45 minutes. And, like
You guys already did a podcast without me?
we've been on here for a
Pretty much.
long time.
Anyway,
We started at 3:30. It's 5:20.
we really wanted you to come and tell us
I've been working on
Tell us.
We've been watching basketball and eating
Yeah.
food,
Yeah,
getting fat for
Anyways,
footage.
so yeah, that's
Tell us about who you see as upsettable or who you see as the top 4 that could be.
No, so it's
Who?
So we're looking
who
at
in
the-
the bottom 10 could beat in the top 10.
that sounds
the
terrible.
people who are in the top 10 who aren't
who are the big
Southwest,
four.
who aren't Baylor, Texas State, and Lone Star. And if any of them can beat one of those teams,
Yeah, that's what I said.
So why they can,
Yeah,
why
that's
they
what I
can't,
said.
and which team.
What's that?
So let's start. We'll just go in order. I think Tufts is 5 right now.
No, we're not going to go in order because
We're going in order.
Oh,
We're
I
going
can talk about Tufts.
Yeah,
you guys
we
never
can.
do.
Okay, so Tufts. Why can they beat a Big 4 team?
Okay.
You also can say they can't. Like
I don't think that you guys can beat Lone Star. I'm just gonna start and say the only 2 teams I think can beat Lone Star are Texas and Baylor.
I agree.
I think either one. I think both of those teams have a pretty good shot at it. I don't think that they'd be favored. Like I would never go into a game between like Baylor and Lone Star and be like, oh, Baylor is probably going to win this. But I think that they have like a 40%. Both those teams have like close to as good a chance as anyone has had.
Right.
Tufts, I think. Who's the?
There's Texas State.
Yeah, Texas State. I think
Baylor.
Texas State is a tough matchup for you guys because if you're losing Nick Ryder,
Oh, he's gone.
yeah,
He's gone.
he's gone. And one of the things that he gave you was more of a physical beater.
Uh-huh.
And we kind of talked about it already, but like
Andrew's
people
not
are just
either.
gonna beat the shit out of whoever you're playing. Like whoever you put a beater, Peebler is going to hit them to the ground at least 5 times. So and it's gonna hurt. I don't see any chasers tackle as hard as he tackles beaters.
And he's not that big of a guy. Is what's
I don't
most
know.
impressive
I don't
about
know
it.
what he does. I only talked to him briefly after the game and was like, "You're really good." And but he kind of seems like he must be like psychotic. I don't know what. No offense, but like I mean that as like
No offense, you're a psycho.
I mean that like as a compliment. Like I don't know how he just must like be crazy if he can hit that hard for being like. I mean like he can't be much bigger than Chris Cito.
I mean, he might be smaller than Chris.
Yeah, like and Chris Cito is like a twig.
Yeah.
And this guy is like wiry. I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway.
But yeah.
So he's gonna beat the crap out of Andrew.
So I
if we
think
play them.
I think you guys would have the best chance of the 4 against UT, because I think that their beaters are they're physical and they're really good, but I think that you can find a way. I mean, if Augie plays, that's tougher too, but I don't know.
Is that a thing?
I feel like you guys have a better chance against them. I haven't watched a ton of UT.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick one that you guys had a chance against, I would say them. I don't think you guys match up super well against any of the Southwest Big Four.
Why is that?
Because
I'm just seriously like
No, yeah,
I'm not offended. I just want to know.
I think I don't think you guys have enough tackling around the hoops.
We're the least physical team in the top 10.
Yes,
Oh,
I think
for
that
sure.
I think that the point defending is kind of an overrated thing in Quidditch. I think point defending is important, but your ability to tackle that far away from the hoops is more of a plus than if you can't do it, you suck. But you have to be able to tackle people when they get close. Like you have for us, we had David who could swallow people up when they got close, and you guys have David Stack, who is a great mid-range shooter, and there's a lot to be said for him offensively. But I mean, I wrote at the beginning of the year that I thought that he needed some work there, and I have like a GIF on my Tumblr somewhere of John Jackson just dunking on him, and like John Jackson is really good, but he's not even half as physical as any of those players that you're going to play against.
Right.
Like what's he gonna do when the midriff guy from Texas comes barreling through there?
In case.
Well, yeah, Peyton Pace. Like that's bad news for David Stack. and I think that you guys won't be able to just push. I think of the beaters that you'd be able to just kind of like push back. UTs are the ones that you're going to be able to just kind of push back because they are once they get bludgeon control, they're just going to not concede it.
Right.
And you guys are going to be able to make some mid-range shots on them potentially. Because like instead of trying to fight you, they'll just like throw it back and like retreat and survive kind of with their beater because they just don't want to lose bludgeon control.
Right.
Because they know that they can score almost all the time on one bludgeon.
Right.
So I think that you guys have a chance of scoring against them. I just think that
Defensively, we're
defensively,
not
they're just gonna slice through you guys.
I will say that Southwest defenses have a tendency to just not cover a female chaser unless she is like right next to the
Southwest
hoop.
defenses have a tendency to not cover people off ball.
Not everybody, but
I mean, in like pretty consistently, the Southwest mentality is when you catch it, we're gonna hit you, but we're gonna let you catch it because we want to hit you.
Well, yeah, I think one, they don't ever want to get beat on a gamble. So like in basketball, right? If you have a player who's always gambling for steals in the passing lane and they still catch it, you're out of the play.
Right.
And they feel more confident, I think, about you catch it and then we tackle you. I think that can also screw them over because I think sometimes you can pursue a tackle out of, I think you can take yourself out of the play. I think the Southwest is a little, and I mean this is like a pretty slight criticism, but I think they're a little overeager to tackle instead of just contain and then pick their opportunity to tackle. But again, I haven't been playing them, so I don't know I don't know if that's even possible. I forget what we're talking about.
This is how we get off track.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're gonna keep going down the list of top 10.
Sure.
But continue whatever you're saying.
I mean, I was pretty much done.
Okay. So next up's Maryland.
With Ohio State, but so we're not gonna do.
But I can't talk about Ohio State.
Jerry Butner might be able to beat some Southwest teams.
Jerry
We're not
Butner
sure.
is good at Quidditch.
So
They don't ever say why he's good. Like they're just like Jerry Butner can do it all. And I'm like,
What does that mean?
do all of what? Like,
Can he pass? Can he get me a latte? Does he mix?
And the answer just seems to be yes. And I'm like, all right. So is there anything he doesn't do well? And the answer always seems to be no. And that doesn't. It seems like an unrealistic.
Apparently, what
person.
he can't do is show up to Glass City this weekend because he's not coming with the unofficial Ohio State team. I've heard.
I don't know. Okay, well,
There you go.
apparently he makes a mean latte. That's what I've learned from it.
So Maryland, I don't think it's that controversial or even innovative to say I think they have the best shot of knocking off a.
Yeah, I think Maryland. I think Maryland has a shot of beating anyone in the South Florida.
I think Baylor's their worst shot though.
Yeah,
I don't think they match up well.
I think that. Well, I think that the thing that they're gonna have trouble with against any Southwest team is their defense just is not. It's like ancient. Like this is the defense that I'm sure that they came up with, like before World Cup 5, and they just haven't changed it since. Because we did the same thing as at Emerson. We ran the exact same defense that they run at World Cup 6, and we ran into UCLA, and you just could not do that against Asher and Andy, and they just like sniped the crap out of us, and they scored a lot.
Uh-huh.
And then we realized we have to come up with something else to play defense, and I'm talking about defense where you just put the beater on whoever's bringing the ball up, and then cover all the other chasers.
Yeah,
it's like in football terms, I guess it'd be like a nickel defense.
It covers 0.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. That thing. Yeah. But it's
Don't mess with football terms.
It's
leave that to the textbook.
Okay. It's like they're going into pass coverage.
Right.
They're like, we're just gonna try and we're just gonna bet that you can't get past our beaters, and you can't pass it, so you're just gonna have to shoot.
Right.
And against like UNC or like the teams that they've been playing, that has been a gamble that's worked. But I think when they run into like UT, for example, who they played last year, and everyone says that game was really close, but I have a hard time believing that. I mean, the score was.
There's no game in the history of Quidditch I'd rather have film of
Yeah.
games that don't have film than that UMD UT game.
Yeah.
I've heard it didn't go that long. Like there weren't actually that many minutes of play time.
I wouldn't be surprised, but like when you get, I'm terrible with the Southwest names. I don't know who that big beater with the glasses is for UT.
Freddie Slims.
Yeah, that guy, Freddie. When he's coming barreling down at like Jeremy Dane, then or any of their beaters, and their strategy appears to be like, we're just gonna like, you're gonna hit me, I'm gonna pass it to the other beater. Like that's just not gonna cut it, because he's just like, when they run up against the 1.5 bludgers, that's gonna be bad news. And I think even if they have 2 bludgers, they're still gonna get knocked down a lot. They have to figure a way to retool their defense, and if they can't do that, their shot is low of beating any one of the Southwest Big Four. But they do have a really good offense, and I think that they can match the pace.
Yeah, they can match the pace.
for
They
sure.
can match.
Yeah.
They can match the depth. They can set out.
Yeah, so I think-
and they can hit. At
They
least
can
a
hit.
little bit.
They can hit.
Yeah,
They can hit
I mean,
better than any other team on this side of Mississippi, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they don't hit very often, but I think that they're capable of it.
Right.
And Harry's really good.
They don't hit much because they don't play a point defender.
Yeah, they have a really good seeking game.
They cover really well off that. Really
Yeah.
well.
So and they're athletic, and they have a good offense, and I think it's going to be much better by the time they get to South Carolina. But without a better defense, they're going to be kind of screwed.
What's different about them than like some of the other teams on this side of the country that are talking about in the top 10 is the rest of the teams are all kind of trying to find an advantage where they're better at something than the Texas teams.
Yeah.
And UMD just kind of plays more like them in certain ways.
For sure.
Yeah, I think they if you talk to Harry, he was kind of just like, we're just going to adapt the Southwest style and just play that way.
Right.
And I think that they're the closest to having done that, and I think that it's served them really well. But I think if they run into a team that's been doing that against other teams that have been doing that, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a lot tougher.
So next up, I believe, I'm just doing the rankings off the top of my head. We'll hit all 6 teams at some point besides Ohio State.
We already touched Ohio State.
Yeah, we did.
Jeremy Bowman.
I wonder how many different ways we've said his last name during this
No,
podcast.
how many times
Ohio
we've said-
State.
For
Let's
not
just
knowing-
start purposely
Those
saying
are-
it.
for not knowing anything about Midwest Quidditch, we've talked about it a lot.
Yeah,
No, we just talked about Jeremy.
And lattes. Don't forget the lattes.
Jeremy Bowman. I'm trying to think of like a
Botner.
like a buck Hawkeye pun I can come up with, but I got nothing.
Also, the anteater's tied, homie.
Yeah.
Ooh, get out of here.
UVA did survive, by the way. Though I assume if people care, they're also watching this game right now. / they're listening to this podcast a week from
We
now.
only have 6 viewers, so like
Yeah,
something's
We're
gone
losing viewers.
something's gone horribly wrong.
I'm almost positive one of them is Capri, and she's just
and I
like,
think 2 of them are
and she's just
Michiana.
messaging me, being like, "Man, you suck."
To be fair, the regular number of people listen to this podcast. It's
Oh
just
my
that
God.
people aren't listening to the live stream,
Yeah.
which is totally understandable because it's in the middle of people's rush hour back home from work and stuff. Anyway, so the Gambits. I think the Gambits' biggest claim to why they could beat a Southwest team is they have the best player in the country outside of the Southwest. Noah's giving me a look like he doesn't believe that.
Which team?
The Gambits.
I think the Gambits are going to be good. I think
Are they? Are they gonna be good?
Okay,
Yeah.
Are
so
they
here's
gonna be
wait.
good?
I'm gonna let Jackson speak first after I ask Noah. Have you watched the Western Regional Final tape yet?
Yes.
Oh, wow. He can talk. Okay, but go
Okay,
ahead.
so I think that I think the Gambits are going to be good because they have a good offense, and they are like, I think that they have the best. They do really well job working the corners, and they have a pretty adaptable. Because if they want to, the first thing you have to stop is you have to stop like them just walking down the tunnel,
Yeah.
right? Which is hard. And if you can stop that, they can work. They can just do one pass to like Ren or Andrew Murray, but like they don't need to do it that often. And when you stop that, then they can make the second pass. And they had a lot of trouble with that, I think, earlier in the season. But I think having won West Regionals that way against the Lost Boys, they're probably going to take that style and adapt it to be something that they're more comfortable with.
Right. You talked about it, and I know that we've talked about it before, the no pass, one pass, two pass offenses that exist. And I was wondering if you think that is going to continue to be a trend where you're going to need more passes, or if you think a two-pass team is always going to be able to be effective.
I think,
Because there are only two bludgers.
yeah, I think that I think that teams that pass more are just gonna be like, I don't think that you can really like characterize it that way, because like Lone Star will swing the ball back and forth as much as, like against Baylor in the finals, they just swung the ball back and forth until they saw a seam that they liked,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would attack it, and then once they attacked it, they would hit another pass.
Yes.
And I think that they just will pass until they're comfortable with whatever shot that they're putting up. And I think that that's kind of where people should be modeling their offense. But the problem with that is that everyone on your team has to be able to pass and catch really well. And a lot of teams, especially on the East Coast, when there's like this big break because of the winter and a lot of other reasons, and just like maybe the talent isn't as much, but there's a lot of dropped passes.
Noah suddenly can't catch a ball anymore. True
That's
fact.
also not true.
And if
We can
if you can't-
sandbag, but don't sandbag that much.
if
It's
you
not like I forgot how to catch a ball.
if you can't, like, if all your players can't pass and catch really effectively on the move, you can't really implement that offense.
Right.
And that's why Maryland is kind of unique, because they do have a lot of people who can pass and catch on the move. And because they can do that, that's why they look the best. Even if like the results don't show it. I think when I was writing about Maryland, I found like their offense was like worse in points per game than you guys. They were worse than QCB.
And you were basing that on games against ranked opponents, correct?
I was basing that against opponents who had qualified for the World Cup. So that throws in a lot of like, especially in the Northeast, a lot of like crap teams. Not crap teams, that's me. A lot of teams that are not kind of in the same level.
Yeah. I mean,
But UMD plays in the Mid-Atlantic, and there's a lot of teams there that don't belong in that conversation either.
UMD has a finishing problem, and it's really inexplicable. They miss so many shots from 5 feet
They had
away.
a finishing problem against us in that.
They had it against UNC too.
Here we go. I've just found my stats. Tufts, QCB scores 108.3 a game. Tufts is 107.
Bang.
Warriors is 106, and then UMB is 102. So the difference isn't like huge.
No.
But I mean, that between QCB and Maryland, if you watch the two of those teams, you wouldn't think that QCB scores like another goal a game than Maryland, because they just don't have the same like polish or even trying to do anything that's like on the same, like the things that Maryland is doing is more interesting than anything than any of the offenses in the Northeast. In my opinion.
I mean, the thing is, like, it's because Maryland keeps falling down the rankings for whatever reason. They've lost one game this season.
Yeah,
they lost the Tusk game, and that's the only game they've lost.
Really early on.
They have 2 wins over NYU. I know it wasn't current NYU, but it was the NYU starting to get shit together. They have a win over QCB. They have a win over Tufts.
They have a dominant win against QCB too.
Yeah,
against a team that is supposed to like that I thought would be a tough matchup for them because of their beaters.
Yeah,
and
they won out
I mean,
Cinch.
Yeah, they. I mean, I guess they're up 30.
Yeah, they might have been up 30. Right.
Which I don't know what you call that because it's not instant range.
I call it instant range.
Okay,
It's instant range.
And they've beaten UNC, who's probably better than we think they are because they haven't played anybody else.
So that they barely beat UNC.
Well, they beat them a couple times this year.
Oh,
Their
sure.
game against them in Turtle Cup is like,
yeah,
it looks beautiful. Like, and they didn't have their best. They didn't have their best offensive player at regionals. It was Sleesman.
Right. Though King is coming along.
Sleesman is an incredible offensive
I
talent.
love Sleesman's one of my favorite
Sleesman's
quick
an
players.
incredible offensive talent. Defensively, he's very good off ball as well.
Okay, so let's get back to Gambits because somehow we ended up back on Maryland. So why can't they? I think unless you're Maryland, you need to be able to have a beater advantage over the Southwest teams to beat them, and I don't know if the Gambits can create that. People believe people like what the Gambits did beater wise in the West Regional Final. I wasn't as impressed. Noah says he watched it, so maybe he can comment, but I'm still not sure he did.
No comment.
And Jackson
Is Facebook and Cooper.
That's fine. That's fine. So they did manage to neutralize Lost Boys beaters, but I didn't think they did it in that impressive a full way.
No, I don't think so either. I think that they had trouble.
We're taking Jackson out of his comfort zone. We're making him talk about the opposite coast. So
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the Lost Boys beaters are really good.
but they were also Maddie had just gotten hurt the game before.
Yeah, and I think that they kind of had this. I don't know. They were definitely not. They were not ready to match the same like physicality that the Gambits brought. And I think that their issue was more from they kind of struggled to score a lot. They were I think that they were comfortable with the high scoring game and how fast it was moving.
Right.
But I don't think that they expected to struggle to score.
Because Jake Tiemann kept running into Ren, expecting one of the times he'd actually get through, and it never worked.
Yeah, and like Frank Gao missed like a catch right next to the
Mhm.
Chiefs, and a couple other people missed like easy catches, and they were just like missing passes by a little bit. And then when they brought in, I know you talked about this with Mitch a couple weeks ago, but when they brought in Scappa and they got like the whole UCLA line, like immediately there was like a give and go between him and Brown, and they just killed it. And from that point on, they kind of like kept pace with them, but it was already too late.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
And I think it's also that, so Maddie wasn't there. When Missy was in the game beating, they were holding their own. It was only when they had to go to a third line female beater, which was because of injury, and Missy's still coming back from injury. That's when Gambits really started getting advantage in the beater game. So I don't think they have the beater game that you need in order to necessarily beat the West team, or Southwest team. But which one do we think they would match up best against? I mean, they already gave UT a game way back at Diamond Cup.
Yeah, I think the thing about UT is
UT's the vulnerable Southwest team, I feel like.
Yeah, but they're also like the best one potentially.
Yeah.
And the reason is because they have like 2 gears, and they had it last year too. The year before when they destroyed everybody, the World Cup 6, it was okay. At World Cup 6, they just kind of like demolished everybody. But then last year they had this 2 gear thing, which is kind of why I don't think the Maryland game was the same level. Because the game that they brought against like Texas A&M and Texas State was much different than
The game device.
yeah, I think. I
we
didn't,
have no idea.
I didn't see it, but you know, they definitely had this.
We know less about this game than we knew about Jeremy Blottner.
That's also maybe the
Yeah,
seventh
I
different
was-
way to say
That's what I was going.
I'm pretty sure we were playing at the same time. I don't know. who we were playing.
The worst, the round of
The-
16 is the saddest thing in Quidditch. It is 8 of the best matchups you're going to see all year, and they're all happening at the same time. There's no video usually of any of them, and you can only watch one. It is so depressing. I watched Emerson Florida's Finest. I supported Emerson.
We shouldn't have watched that game. We should have picked a different one.
Hey, we had to support Emerson.
I remember. I know that, but like, you remember people kept coming up to us like, "Hey, are you gonna watch the Emerson BU game?" And we were like, "No, we've seen this game play out 100 times."
Yeah.
No,
No, I didn't watch the Emerson video game.
that's what I mean. People were like, "Hey, you gonna go watch this game?"
No.
No.
I had to watch. I had to support Emerson against Florida's Finest because God knows the other Boston teams weren't supporting them at the time. Okay, Lost Boys. Lost Boys have such an injury problem, and I think the obvious way that Lost Boys is going to be a Southwest team is they're going to sit in 2 male beaters and they're going to dominate beater play, and Alex Brown's going to score some points.
I think the Lost Boys are not physical enough to beat any of the Southwest teams. I think their worst matchup is Baylor because they're going to run into a lot of good. I don't think that I think that they're going to struggle.
The core of the Lost Boys beat Baylor at World Cup 6 in the semifinals.
Oh, UCLA.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that game was really close.
Oh, it was.
And this is a different Baylor team.
Right.
And
Though it's a Baylor team that now is forced into playing a total 2 male beater because they don't have Brittany anymore.
I don't think that helps. I don't think that helps the. I don't think that helps the Lost Boys at all. Because I think that the more Gilbert plays, the scarier Baylor is. Because he's gonna play just as well as they are, and at beater, and then, you know, I don't think they have anyone who can stop Bruner or any, and I think they're gonna struggle to score in that zone because even though they have the passing, they can't when they need to just like punch it in. They're gonna have a lot of trouble doing that outside of ground.
So who do you think they would have a chance against? Texas again? Is that where we're going?
Yeah.
Is Texas just the answer that we're going to keep giving?
No, I think that they could beat Texas State too. I think I even kind of like their chances against Lone Star. I mean, I don't think their chances are great, but I think that Lone Star's biggest weakness is beating, and they're good at beating, but they're not great. And Lost Boys are really good at beating, so they're gonna kind of keep bludger control a lot, and I think Lone Star is gonna try and get it a lot, and it's not gonna work. And I think that if you can hold bludger control and sniff out whatever offense they're doing, which is kind of something only Texas and Baylor have been able to do, but that's like the only way you can beat them.
Yeah, I think calling Lone Stars beating good, not great, is still generous. You watch them on the field, and they get so bailed out by having the best chaser line in the history of the game.
Yeah, I don't think that they're very good.
No,
I was
being generous.
Yeah.
Speaking of, remember we were talking about those Louisville teams earlier? We've now been watching this Louisville UC Irvine game for a little bit, and I still couldn't tell you anything.
They still press.
I still couldn't tell you anything Louisville does well.
Well,
I'm
they're
shocked.
they're not doing anything that well right
I'm
now.
shocked.
So are we out of teams? No, we have to do NYU.
NYU, yeah, NYU.
Can NYU beat a Southwest team? Is it just the Lost Boy formula basically?
Yeah, I mean their strategy is the exact same thing.
I think so too. They're not a physical team, but they can go into 2 male beaters and have 2 really good male beaters.
Their advantage is that they're not going to try and be physical. Like they will not try and like go through any tackles. They're not going to try and tackle anybody, and no one's going to get hurt that way or worn out. And they're Indies could get hot and make a couple of shots, and I mean that's what they would have to do.
But
I don't think they're going to beat anybody.
You go to that.
They do have a really good chance in the secret game. Austin Sweeney caught Harry at the New York pickups a couple weeks ago. He caught him in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
He ran across the field, made one move, and caught him.
Sweeney is so long. I think he's probably, if he's top 3 secrets in the game right now.
He would have a case for Team USA if there was a Team USA this year.
Yes.
I think who's better than him?
Here is still really good.
Here, yeah.
Everyone says he's really good, but then like I don't know, they don't seem to catch the snitch.
As much as they should with him being really good.
I mean,
NYU does catch the snitch a
Sweeney,
lot.
I mean, I was trying to be generous as you were. Sweeney might be the best seeker in the game right now.
At the least, he has Harry's number as a snitch.
Literally, I mean, I remember they were playing against QCB, and I was writing about the two of them, and I looked at like how many shots he actually even got at the snitch, and it was not that many, because
Well, he doesn't go for the snitch if he doesn't have an open lane.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, like even he was just getting beat all the time.
Yeah.
because
Because QCB has really good secret beaters.
yeah, he was against Max Kaplan,
Yeah.
and he was just all over the place. But they it only took him like 45 seconds of actual like
Grappling time.
grappling time, and that's like cumulative. No, he's the best, and the fact that they have him means that they only have to be within 30.
Yeah.
But I think that that's.
Still too much to
I
ask.
mean, to be within 30, no one's been within 30 of Lone Star all year, and I think that I don't know. I think Baylor.
I think the 2-male beater set is going to hurt a lot of these Northeast teams and a lot of the teams in general defensively.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really tough.
It's
cover.
going to be
I think it's gonna
so
be
hard.
harder. I think it's gonna be harder to score.
See,
personally.
I think I could see them forcing Baylor into a really low scoring game.
See, I was
Because if they manage to get some budget control, they have a zone that they play. It's what they run against QCB a lot, where they sit their beaters deep and they don't play three trees quite, but they do kind of sit in a zone. So Baylor's in its 2-mil beater set. So Bruner doesn't really have passing options. He does have a good range shot, but it's hard against the zone to hit that shot. So now you're just kind of slowing down the pace, and then against their zone, they just do that thing NYU does where they kind of work it around the outside.
I was
with
going to
their
say, I
passes.
don't think NYU is hurt so much as some other teams by going to a 2-mil set offensively because they're really, really, really patient. You were talking about patience in some of the Southwest teams earlier where they wait for their opportunity and they wait for their lane and then they drive. And NYU is really patient and really looks to get an open shot. And they don't need, 4 guys out there running around to really try and get something going. They are going to ISO you until they find their best mismatch. Which might not be a mismatch. There might not be one against Southwest teams.
Yes. So I say Baylor, and then I think the reasons NYU wouldn't be able to win against the Southwest team are pretty obvious. So I think that finished up that segment. We're gonna let you go, Sir Jackson. We kept you for longer than I think you thought you were gonna end up being here. So one thing that I was kind of interested. There was a fantasy tournament in Boston last weekend, and so Aaron Wool was there playing, and Matt Cardarelli was there playing.
Yikes.
And what I realized is, like, as of not even last year, as of like October, Boston was in this male beater really stronghold. Or you could go back to last season because then you get Aaron and CJ too.
Really just message him.
Aaron, that's really weird.
It's like you're on TV.
And now we're talking about him.
Aaron.
The male beater bubble in Boston just popped.
Yeah.
Sanders moved to Africa.
Yes.
Matt
Stop playing.
Matt and Aaron stopped playing.
That was it.
No.
No, they were good, but they were not. It's not like
Matt was damn good. By the time he stopped playing.
yeah. By the time you retired,
By the time he retired, he was
Matt is now
pretty much the center of a tough defense that was able to beat the number 3.
Matt has now won each of the last 3 tournaments he played in. 2 of them being fantasy. One of them though was Northeast Fantasy, and also Oktoberfest. Just an interesting little factoid. So he hasn't lost
There
tournaments
are very
since
few
that.
players who can be the entire center and nucleus of the defense.
And then CJ moved to New Orleans after graduating.
he's on Loyola playing Chaser now.
He's playing Chaser.
Is he
now?
really?
Yeah.
Dude, bad on Loyola for
They have
doing
him
that.
playing Chaser.
Bad on Loyola for doing
He
that.
scored. He scored in every single game they had at regionals.
Wow.
Congratulations, bad on Loyola for doing that. CJ should be playing beater.
Anyway,
Tad, get your shit together.
so is that going to have a serious long-term negative impact on Boston? Because it's not the most physical Quidditch city, and suddenly it lost its male beater level.
I think it's probably going to balance out. I feel like if I mean you see it across like Cristito played Chaser here, and then he went and moved to beater
Mhm.
because he realized that was like the most important position. If you can't
Don't
like,
tell them so.
if you can't like tackle or I mean like
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
got you.
they've been doing fine without.
There are plenty of ways to be good, but beater, if you have a great beater, he's the most influential position in the field.
Yeah,
Or she.
I mean, you do so much, and I think that people are going to start realizing that, and they'll just switch positions, and they'll figure it out. Because, you just need to be athletic. Like just with any other position, just athletic and practice.
Well, you also
That's how you're
need,
going to get good at beater.
you really need a good understanding of the game.
Yes, to be the best
Well,
for just a
yeah.
straight athlete who's
Sure.
coming into the game who you want to have an immediate impact. There's no learning curve to play chaser.
No,
There's a learning curve to play beater.
yeah, and they just kind of, I think the people who realize it, who have been playing, will switch over, and those are the people who are going to be good at it anyways. The people who are like, wait, this is really important because I can do X, Y, and Z. I can affect offense, defense, and
Special teams.
Yeah, and seeking. So, I like my fingerprints are all over this game. So I should like that's where you should be if you want to be like a real game changer. I mean, you can't score, but that's about it.
Okay. So yeah, I think that about wraps up with our segment with Jackson. We might be coming back one more time with one more guest, but we're gonna take a break. We're gonna watch the women's basketball, watch some NCAA, but we'll let you know when we come back. Thanks for listening. If you're watching the podcast, thanks. Oh, I guess for listening. Thanks a lot, Jackson, for coming.
Yeah.
Should we expect you on the Quidditch pitch at some point? How's your knee doing?
No, I won't be playing again.
Okay.
I had my surgery in December, and it takes a year for the cartilage to form, and then that's when I can start thinking about that sports again.
Should we expect you at World Cup?
I will be at World Cup.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great to have someone someone who knows the game analyzing it the entire time.
excited to just be a fan.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Well, thanks a lot for coming, Jackson,
Yeah, thanks for
and
having me.
we'll see you guys again soon.